What do parties and curses have in common? They both love Fridays! Whether you're keeled over a toilet at 10 p.m. or trapped in a series of supernatural events, Fridays are likely the cause of your misfortune. Hi, I'm V, and today I'll be leading your curious craniums through the top 5 scary, true Friday the 13th stories that will leave you terrified. Number 5. The Templar Knights. Starting off with the possible origins of the superstition surrounding Friday the 13th, we have the Templar Knights versus King Louis IV. The events that occurred between the Templar Knights and King Louis on Friday the 13th display how long dark events have plagued the cursed date. The Knights Templar was a powerful and wealthy medieval Christian military order who were established during the 1100s, meant to protect the Christian pilgrims that were traveling to the Holy Land during the Crusades. Throughout time, the Templars grew in prominence, managing to accumulate vast amounts of wealth and power, which of course, as it always does, led to jealousy and suspicion among European monarchs and the church. On Friday, October 13th, 1307, King Philip IV of France, in collaboration with Pope Clement V, ordered the arrest of thousands of Templar Knights across France. This coordinated effort became the beginning of the swift and brutal downfall of the Templars, who were all accused of heresy, blasphemy, and other crimes. There were several reasons behind King Philip's decisive and swift actions. Philip had become financially burdened by debts he and the city owed to the Templars, so he saw their arrest as an opportunity to seize their immense wealth for himself. There were also rumors of dark practices and secret rituals within the Templar Order that had cast a greater shadow of suspicion among them, and back then anything secret was made the #1 enemy of both religious and political authorities. The events of Friday the 13th, 1307 sealed the Templars' fate. Many were imprisoned, harmed at the hands of King Louis's armies, and forced to confess to heresy, obviously while they were under serious duress. Some faced execution, and the order itself was ultimately disbanded by Pope Clement V in 1312. All of the Templars' accumulated assets were confiscated by authorities, and their once almighty organization was quickly destroyed. Friday the 13th's brushes with bad luck and misfortune can be traced back to this event in history. It left a huge mark on the date, and many of the myths and superstitions surrounding the day can be traced back to the time of these events. It was pretty influential. It's important to note that religion had consistently played a huge role in the origins of our modern superstitions and beliefs. Number 4. Sam Patch. Guys, I'm gonna be honest. Though this one did occur on Friday the 13th, I feel that the fault of this occurrence lies more in the adrenaline chasing category and not in the supernatural curse category. Sam Patch was a daredevil. His life was a series of dramatic leaps and daring dives, and his final daring jump was on Friday the 13th, which definitely cemented his place in history. Sam Patch grew up near the Pawtucket Falls, where he first discovered his love for jumping from heights into the water below. His daring leaps and acrobatics earned him local fame, and he became known as the Yankee Leaper. But it was in September of 1829, on a Friday the 13th, that he would attempt his most famous and ill-fated jump. Patch, for some reason, set his sights on the mighty Niagara Falls, a symbol of natural wonder and untamed power. The idea of leaping from such a perilous height both terrified and thrilled the public. A little known fact is that this was not the first time Sam had made this leap. Only a few weeks prior to the famed incident, Sam had jumped off of the falls successfully. On Friday, October 17th, 1829, thousands of spectators gathered at the falls to witness this audacious feat. It was a day filled with trepidation and anticipation as hordes of people waited impatiently. Sam Patch climbed to the edge of the Genesee Falls, just above Niagara Falls. He gazed down to the rushing water below him, and then, in a moment of inept audacity, he leaped into the dangerous waters below. The fall from the heights was as breathtaking as it was terrifying, and for a moment, Patch seemed to vanish into the frothy abyss. To the collective relief of the crowd, Sam Patch emerged from the water, having successfully completed his jump from the Genesee Falls. However, the thrill of the moment quickly faded as Patch made a fateful decision. Consumed by hubris and encouraged by the crowd's cheers, he declared his intention to leap from the higher, more treacherous Horseshoe Falls the following Friday. But on this cursed day, Sam was not as fortunate. Now, for the big moment you've all been waiting for. On Friday, November 13th, 1829, Patch once again climbed to the edge, surrounded by even larger, more rowdy crowds who had all heard of his previous show of adrenaline. But this time, when Sam dove into the strong, rushing waters of Horseshoe Falls, he did not resurface. The crowd stood terrified and surprised. Even though honestly, how surprised can you really be when someone doesn't survive a nearly impossible to survive stunt? Honestly, if you beat the odds once by surviving diving a leap into a strong waterfall, don't try it again. It'll just add to the statistics. Number 3. Bob Renphrey. Coming in right at the center of our list, we have the infamous tale of Bob Renphrey's Friday the 13th experience. Of course, on Friday the 13th in 1976, Renphrey's day was filled with a myriad of odd and inexplicable series of events. Renphrey's day began with a routine motorcycle journey through the quaint, beautiful countryside of South Wales. As he rode his motorcycle through a desolate forested area near the village of Haverfordwest, Renphrey's attention was drawn to an odd, mysterious figure standing on the side of the road. The strange figure was dressed in old, tattered clothes, looking utterly out of place. The entity had a ghastly appearance, and it caused Renphrey to stop dead in his tracks. From what he could see, the figure appeared to be a spectral monk, its eyes hollow and flat, completely devoid of life. Completely paralyzed by fear, Renphrey just watched in shock as the man reached towards him with a bony hand. Terror washed over him completely as he felt the being's icy grip clasp his wrist, which left a mark that would stay on Renphrey's body for days after. Then, the ghostly figure began to utter ominous words, predicting a series of tragic events that would befall Renphrey in the years to come. Nah, I would have been out long before this man had time to predict the downfall of my life. True to the impromptu, unprompted prophecy, Renphrey's life began to unravel in a debilitating sequence of events. He began to experience misfortunes, including accidents, injuries, and personal tragedies, which plagued him relentlessly. Friends and family watched in twisted astonishment as the curse seemingly took hold of Renphrey's life, causing him to become a living embodiment of Friday the 13th superstitions. Desperate to break the curse, Renphrey sought solace in the realms of the paranormal and the supernatural. He consulted psychics, mediums, and paranormal experts, all in an effort to understand and reverse the malevolent forces that seemed to follow him. Many have heard this tale, and the theories surrounding the supposed curse remain widely debated to this day. Some take the story of Renphrey as a cautionary tale, saying it displays how influential and effective the power of suggestion and superstition can be, while others stick to the more paranormal route and believe that Renphrey was in fact cursed by the strange being he saw on the side of the road. Guys, I think it serves as a cautionary tale for talking to strange men that are lurking on the sides of highways. Don't be like Joshua from Troll 2. Don't stop for the decrepit man eyeing you down with darkness. Number 2. The Andes plane crash. The Andes plane crash on Friday the 13th remains one of the most harrowing survival stories in the related history. On October 13th, 1972, Air Force Flight 571, which was carrying 45 passengers and crew members, unexpectedly crashed into the Andes Mountains in Argentina. The flight, which was on its way to Santiago, Chile, from Montevideo, Uruguay, encountered horrific weather conditions and experienced unprecedented navigational errors, which led to a crash. Miraculously, 29 people initially survived the impact. However, the nightmare was far from over. They faced sub-zero temperatures, extreme altitude, and dwindling supplies. Their situation became even more strained when they found out that the wreckage had landed in a very remote area, which would make rescue efforts nearly impossible. The days turned into weeks, and the survivors were forced to confront a grim reality. They needed to rely on their wits and resourcefulness to stay alive. Yeah, honestly, that's pretty grim. I would not trust most people's wits, and most people I meet on planes are not resourceful in the slightest. Like, no. The man sitting next to me who spent 10 minutes trying to connect his AirPods to the incompatible plane screen would not be my first choice in a life or death situation. They constructed makeshift shelters from the wreckage, used a small transistor radio to monitor rescue efforts, and eventually sent 2 of their own on a perilous trek to find help. After weeks of barely scraping by, they began eating whatever they could find. Scraps of food from the plane, snow, and of course, eventually, the unthinkable. They began to eat the icy flesh of those who had not survived. Finally, after 72 days of unimaginable hardship, rescue finally came when a Chilean search team located the crash site and saved the remaining survivors. I would not survive this. I would just bury myself in a hole of snow and hope that I'd be able to hibernate safely until a rescue team managed to save me. Number 1. Daz Baxter. Friday the 13th holds a peculiar and unsettling place in the life of Daz Baxter, a man whose life seems intertwined with this date in an odd and inexplicable way. Daz's story is a startling blend of misfortune and intrigue, and has managed to garner attention and questions about the mysterious forces that seem to follow him throughout his life, and more specifically, throughout the hours of every single Friday the 13th. Daz Baxter's first reported encounter with bad luck on Friday the 13th comes from when he was very young. On this day, his family home was struck by lightning, which caused extensive damage, and Daz himself only managed to narrowly avoid the shocking bolt. This bizarre incident would only be the beginning of a series of horrifying events that Daz had to deal with over his life. Throughout his adulthood, Daz Baxter's Friday the 13th experiences took on an uncanny pattern. He was involved in a car accident, hardly escaping serious injury. Another time, he lost his job seemingly unexpectedly, which led to a string of debilitating financial setbacks. These incidents, though at first glance all seem unrelated, do of course have a common thread. They all took place on a Friday the 13th. As Daz's experiences continued throughout his life, friends and family began to take note of the strange coincidences that always surrounded the same dates. Some even reasonably suggested that he was cursed, while others believed that Friday the 13th held a suggestive power over him. Daz himself wrestled with the idea of fate and superstition, trying to make sense of the bizarre occurrences that seemed to converge on this particular day. The events all came to a head on August 13th, 1976, when Daz decided to avoid the cursed events of the day and stay in bed. But this protest did not turn out the way he'd expected. As he laid in bed, refusing to remove himself from the safety of covers, he began to hear a cracking noise coming from beneath him. And then, without any warning, the floor beneath his bed collapsed, sending Daz down 6 stories, landing in the rubble of the collapsed apartment building. Daz passed away immediately, still laying in his bed. This is one case that I can confidently label as a curse. There is no way that all of the things that happened to him were merely a coincidence. Poor Daz. He really thought he'd outsmarted the curse. He had to have done something in a past life for him to get punished like this. That brings this list to a close. What are your plans this Friday the 13th? I would say I'd just stay in bed and try to let the day pass me by, but as we now know, that wouldn't do me much good. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and of course, I hope you learned something. Keep it curious. Bye!